This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather Ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. Now, despite the fact that today is December the 6th, and instantaneously in my mind, I think back to 1989 about the Ecole Polytechnique incident, which was the worst mass shooting in Canada ever till 2020. That's not why we got to know about December the 6th. Anyway, it's December 6th, 1992. The San Francisco Giants made a big move and signed Barry Bonds for 6 years. Now, Barry Bonds was a very good athlete for Arizona State in college baseball, winning a few College World Series titles, and being the father. I mean, having his father being Bobby Bonds, who was a well-traveled slugger who did pretty well for the Giants franchise and even had stops with the Yankees and the Angels among other teams. And Barry Bonds' godfather was Willie Mays, so he had the pedigree, and his pedigree worked. It's Pittsburgh knew that he was a good athlete, and he helped the Pirates win back-to-back NL East titles. Unfortunately for Pittsburgh, they couldn't get to the World Series even they tried. 1990, they were taken out by the Reds, who went head to toe, and basically every day was first place in the NL West. The Reds would shock the A's to win the World Series. In 1991, the Pirates would fall to the Braves in Game 7 on their turf, no less. But in 92, things were different. Pittsburgh looked destined to win Game 7 on Atlanta's turf, get revenge for 91. They were up 2-0 in the ninth when Jose Lind, who was a pretty good second baseman, made an uncharacteristic error. A few batters later, Francisco Cabrera, of all people, came up to the plate and scored David Justice with a run, and then Sid Bream, who was not really the fastest player in the world, somehow managed to beat the throw from Barry Bonds in left field and went safe at the plate, and the Braves went to the World Series, losing to the Blue Jays in 6. Barry Bonds was near the end of his contract with the Pirates, and he wanted to get paid. He thought that Pittsburgh really sucked and all that. I think in a sense he wanted to get out of Pittsburgh, thinking that he'll never get to the World Series that way. So Barry Bonds decides, why not? I gotta go into free agency. So he courts some teams, and then he signs with the San Francisco Giants. It's a perfect fit. I mean, his father, Bobby, played for them. His godfather, Willie Mays, played for them. And it was a good atmosphere. So he signed a 6-year deal with the Giants. Now you'd be thinking, oh, it's just some simple Barry Bonds signing. Why are you doing this sports catastrophe on this day? Well, it's not to do with Bonds. It's to do with the San Francisco Giants as a whole. Now, a quick history about the San Francisco Giants. They were called the New York Giants. Yes, I know that there's a football team by that name too, but the football and baseball teams were both named New York Giants. Why? I don't know. Anyhow, so those New York Giants were pretty good. They had the old-timey Christy Mathewson. There was another screwball pitcher. Carl Hubble, I guess. They had some great pitching. They had some great hitting. Fred Merkel, Merkel's owner. But the New York Giants wanted to get out of their stupid, dilapidated stadium polo grounds. I mean, despite winning the 1954 World Series, which was a big shock against the Cleveland Indians. Unfortunately, though, they didn't know where to go. Rumors were that the Giants were going to move the team to Minneapolis in 1958. But because the Dodgers were making the move from Brooklyn to Los Angeles, mostly because of some people like Robert Moses getting their nose into things and trying to fuck Brooklyn over. Sorry, but that's the way I feel. They moved to Los Angeles, and they wanted the Giants to move to the West Coast so that, they could have two teams on the West Coast, and then, you have a rivalry between the Giants and Dodgers. Have the rivalry on the West Coast, and teams can go to the West Coast and play two series. Spend a week on the West Coast, and then fly home without having to go for a 3-game series out west and then have to fly all the way out east and all that. And so the Giants moved to San Francisco. The Giants-Dodgers rivalry was ignited with the cities of San Francisco and Los Angeles. The San Fran Giants almost won the 62 World Series, but that ball just couldn't go over Bobby Richardson's head in 1962. The Giants would battle the Dodgers for a while. Well, no World Series titles there. The Giants in the 80s were kind of meh. 89, they pulled off an NL West title and took care of the Cubs to get to the World Series before the A's won in a sweep. No doubt helped by a earthquake, the Lola Prieta earthquake at that. But the Giants behind the scenes were hemorrhaging money and all that. They were having issues with ownership as early as 1975 when rumors were circulating that the San Fran Giants would have to sell the team and move again. Like they went through that fuss in 1958 to move, and now almost 2 decades later they had to move again. Well, guess what? The San Francisco Giants were about to head to Toronto, and it was like, wow, Canada was going to get a major league franchise. But thankfully for the Giants, they had an injunction that made sure that Bob Lowry, a local man, could buy the team and keep the team in San Francisco, despite the fact that attendance was really poor. Well, the good news, of course, for Toronto is that they got an expansion team in 1977, no doubt helped by Kansas City owner Ewing Kauffman, whose wife Muriel came from Toronto and was a baseball fan. So the San Fran Giants were there. But then things started to heat up again. That the Giants were hemorrhaging money. Bob Lowry was trying to sell the team. And the Giants were almost about to move to Tampa. Tampa built this nice baseball stadium called the Suncoast Dome. That's what Tropicana Field was called at the time. And to attract a baseball team. Seattle had a chance to move to Florida a couple of times. The White Sox nearly went to Tampa because of no money for a new stadium because Comiskey Park was falling apart. Thankfully, at the 12th hour, the White Sox were lucky as the Illinois legislature said, fine, you can have some money for a ballpark. And they did. I can't remember who else would have been there. Well, Tampa had a chance to get expansion for the NL, but their cousins, the Miami team, got the team. So Tampa looked like they were going to get the Giants, and heck, we would have an all Florida rivalry. The Marlins and the Giants would battle tooth and nail for a thing. Tampa versus Miami. Well, it didn't happen. San Francisco got a new owner, they got lucky and all that, and the Giants were saved. Despite all this problem, they signed Bonds to the 6-year deal. And how did it go? Well, Barry Bonds is a San Francisco legend. Like, I don't like him because of all his Belco steroid crapola. All that. I don't think he's a home run leader because he used most of his steroids. But the problem is with Bonds is that his home run feats as a 40-year-old were too good to be true. That's the problem. When he got older, he hit more home runs and all that. He would hit like 30, 40 home runs in a season. No big deal. But, of course, the ball was kind of juiced too, if you will. Probably to save baseball after the 94 strike. But regardless, the Bond signing actually worked in spades to start with. Bonds was hitting the ball. The Giants were rocking the NL West. It looked good for the Giants. But then somehow, in some way, they choked it away. And the Atlanta Braves ended up winning the NL West. Yes, I know that the Braves were in the NL West and the Cubs were in the NL East. Although, like, Chicago's kind of west of in a Western time zone. Like the Central time zone. But still, the Giants got caught. The Braves would win 104 games. The Giants would win 103 games and not even make the playoffs. If the wild card format was around in 1993, the Giants definitely would have made the playoffs as the wild card team and probably would have faced the Braves in the playoffs. Oh, no, they couldn't face the Braves. I think it would have been Philly or I think it would have been Philly. But no, if the wild card had happened and the divisions were what they were, Atlanta would have won the East. Stanford would have won the West. I don't know who would have won the Central, and Philly would have been the wild card team. But still, the Giants were wrong. 103 wins. Now, a lot of people were probably thinking the wild cards thing was basically to put in place to help teams like the Giants who had 103 wins and never made the playoff season. No, that was false. They were actually planning on doing that for the 94 season regardless, before the 93 season started. So it was the last year of and what they call the last great pennant chase. But still, Bonds is an icon. The Giants only went to one World Series with him around 2002 when they should have beaten the Angels and that stupid rally monkey, but they didn't. It explains my hate of monkeys because of, the rally monkey. But anyway, so Bonds' sign was huge for the city of San Francisco, and the Giants were just that much better. Fight me on it. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.